I got to see the new A24 horror movie Heretic at the world premiere in Toronto about a month ago at this point, and there are very few films I get more excited for than something horror related that has the A24 logo at the front of it, because not only have they made some of my favorite horror movies of all time, honestly, over the past 10 years in terms of stuff like Hereditary, Midsummer, and The Witch, and even though not all of those horror movies work for me, something like Lamb did not work for me really at all, I can still appreciate a movie trying something new, even if it's not necessarily for me. But this feels completely unique to anything A24 has really made in terms of their horror filmmaking before, and I really want to compare it to two other horror movies that are pretty popular, but I feel like if I did that, it would kind of spoil the tone of what this movie is going for, and I really don't want to ruin that for anybody, because I think the best way to experience Heretic is to go in knowing pretty much nothing, if that's even possible, and just going with the flow. Like, yeah, I saw the trailer. The trailer doesn't reveal everything necessarily, but it would give me a little more than what I would want to know going in. And the whole way the entire story is structured, I'm telling you right now, if this video does you anything, it should be to just buy a ticket for Heretic and not know anything about it. And in this entire section of the video, I'm going to try my best to just not talk about anything very specific. I'm just going to talk about why this is one of my favorite movies of the entire year. But if you want the absolute basic premise, it follows two Mormon missionaries played by Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East, and one of the people who reaches out to learn more about their church is Mr. Reed, who is played by Hugh Grant. So the two of them end up paying him a visit, and things start happening. And again, I think the less you know going into this movie, the better, so that's all I'm going to talk about in terms of the story. And I did say this was one of my favorites of the year, but just to emphasize how much I love this movie, I went in kind of excited, but this ended up being my favorite film of the TIFF Film Festival. And the reason I was so surprised with that was because the directors of this movie, who are Scott Beck and Brian Woods, previously made 65, the movie where Adam Driver plays the space marine who is fighting dinosaurs. And I, like most people, really did not like that movie at all. But these were also the guys that wrote the very first Quiet Place screenplay, so they're clearly somewhat talented in the horror genre. And after watching this, I would just have to assume that there is a shit ton of studio interference that we don't know about when it comes to 65, because I refuse to believe that the two guys that made that movie also made this movie. It might just be the biggest jump in quality from directors in like 10 years in terms of what was their previous movie and what was the follow-up. This is like the biggest jump I've seen in a very long time for anybody. You watch this and 65 back to back in one night, you would never guess in a million years it's the same directors. It's crazy. And the best part about Heretic is that even though I love a lot of the A24 horror movies, I do feel like a lot of them aren't super accessible. Like, I love Hereditary. Not something I'm going to recommend to everybody. Some people would consider I Saw the TV Glow a horror movie. Again, not something I'm going to recommend to my friend group if they want to have a fun night watching a horror movie. And even though it's an amazing movie, I just don't see it clicking with a lot of people. Heretic, though, is like the perfect A24 gateway horror movie in the sense that it does feel like it's dipping into elevated horror, which is such like an overrated, overused term at this point. Immaculate was one of my favorite horror movies of the year. It's not necessarily elevated horror. It's dumb, fun, awesome horror, and that's just as deserving of any other title. And some of the best horror movies ever made are literally about teens running away from a maniac trying to kill them. It doesn't have to be super deep all the time. But if somebody that goes to the movie theaters every once in a while for a fun type of horror movie, something like an Immaculate or a Smile 2 or a slasher movie, I think that same person will still have just as much fun in Heretic, because it is consistently filled with tension the entire time, and that never goes away. But at the same time, this is a much more dialogue-focused movie. There is a lot more talking compared to pretty much any other horror movie in recent memory, and the topic of conversation is something that is popular. It is something that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on, and I think what Heretic does best is whatever your preconceived notions about that thing are going into this movie, it brings up a lot of points on many different sides that you probably haven't really thought about before. And it's one of those movies that you just want to talk to everybody you've seen it with. As soon as the credits roll, you're like, Wow, okay, let's talk about this. And again, I love going to movies because of that reason. I feel like less and less these days I go into a movie coming out thinking about something. I want movies to intrigue me like that, where I walk out and I'm thinking of things I never really thought about before. But again, I don't need that in every single movie. What makes Heretic awesome is that it gives me that, but it's also just a great horror/thriller experience. And the movie got me thinking so much that the following day, I went to a second screening of Heretic. So I think officially, besides people that have worked on the movie, I'm probably the first person in the world to have gone to see Heretic twice. Because I went to the world premiere, I was super tired the next day. At film festivals, a few days in, you're really starting to feel it. And I was gonna sleep in and I was gonna recover a little bit. And then my friend Amanda said, hey, there's a good amount of seats, so you're not taking anybody's spot at this press screening if you do want to watch it again. So I went in, watched it again, and had a great time. I think this movie lives up to everything the first viewing was. And for movies like Heretic, I think that's important to know as soon as possible. You know, there's certain movies where you definitely have a great time, but the second time isn't as good when you know all the beats that the film is about to hit. And I think part of what made my first experience of Heretic so awesome was I just had no idea where the story could possibly go. Every 15 minutes, it just felt like, where the hell is this going? But Heretic is just as good, if not better, on a rewatch because the conversations are so well written and so entertaining between this entire trio. And it just feels like one of the most rewatchable horror movies I've seen in a very long time. Like, since I have left this film festival, the main movie I've just wanted to keep watching is Heretic. All three actors are fantastic, don't get me wrong, but there is a reason everybody is talking about Hugh Grant when coming out of this movie because he is so fucking good. There is absolutely zero shot he gets an Oscar nomination for this, but this is one of my favorite performances of the entire year. It might possibly be the best performance I've seen the entire year. I have to really sit here and think about it, but the more I sit on Heretic, I'm like, damn, Hugh Grant is an unreal talent. I want to see this guy cast in every movie ever made now. And this is a guy, I was never really blown away with anything I've seen from him. Like, I didn't dislike Hugh Grant, but I've never seen something where I'm like, wow, Hugh Grant is incredible. I mean, the last thing I saw him play was in Oompa Loompa, and I wasn't necessarily blown away by that one. It is a movie that gives you a lot to talk about, but I'm not going to mention any of that in this video because I want you to be able to go experience this film for yourself. Part of the fun of Heretic is going in blind and discovering what the topic of conversation is for yourself and forming your own opinions about it. So if you don't know much about the film, I would try to avoid as many videos talking about this movie as possible until you get the chance to see it. It comes out very early in November, and I hope you get the chance to see it soon. This is my favorite horror movie of the year, but I don't want to hype you up in a specific kind of way. Like, Heretic is definitely not the scariest movie of the year. If you go into this thinking it's going to live up to like the long legs hype where it's like, hey, if you watch this movie, you're gonna fucking die. If you think it's gonna be that kind of scary, it's not in that vein. But if you just love a good ass fun movie with solid scary moments, great performances, and amazing dialogue, you're in for a treat. And it sucks that the Academy doesn't want to recognize horror movies right now, because not only is Hugh Grant absolutely amazing in this, but I think Heretic is in real consideration for being the best screenplay of the year, and the movie's just so good. I want to watch it again right now. I can't wait to see it in theaters with my girlfriend and roommate who haven't seen it yet, and I just can't wait for all of you to get the chance to see it for yourself.
If this feels like a shorter review than usual, it's because this is a segment of a much larger video that I've put on the channel already, kind of reviewing my entire experience of the Toronto International Film Festival this year. I saw about 37 movies, which is absolutely crazy, and I talk about all of them in that video. Some of these are the biggest Oscar players of the year. Some of them are the best horror movies of the year. Whatever it is, we talk about a lot of movies in that video. So a link to that full video will be in the description here. But if you just want to see the shorter reviews that keep coming out over the next week or two, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of those reviews that drop. This is also all of my social media right here. So if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, I check the Letterboxd the most. I haven't been as active on this because I've been working on this video and so many other projects over the past month. but I love talking about movies on there. So if you want to keep up with what I'm watching, be sure to watch that. Also, shout out to Reed for being so patient with me and helping edit all these videos and getting all these exports out. So if you need help with any editing at all, be sure to hit him up. He will absolutely help your videos out a ton. Be sure to like these videos, whether it's this video, the Long Toronto video, they all help me out a ton. It helps more than you think. I know a lot of people ask for you to hit the like button, but it helps me pay Reed to help me keep editing these videos. So if you won't like it for me, like it for Reed. And be sure to comment down below. Have you seen this movie yet? If the film has come out, what did you think of it? If it hasn't come out yet, are you excited for it still? Did my opinion change? I mean, this outro is going on the end of all of my videos. So with this specific movie, I don't know if I loved it or if I hated it, but you know what? At the end of the day, a day talking about movies is a good day. So I'd love to talk to you in the comment section down below. And that is it for me. So this is Chase. Thank you so much for watching as always, and I hope you have an awesome day. Thanks.